Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Zainab.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
For everyone listening, I've known Valerie for 2 years now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think what it was, a colleague of mine asked me to participate in this workshop, and you were either like you were also a participant. My colleague and I, we did a presentation, and you were like in there networking and chatting and up, and then the next thing I know, I get a message and I'm like, hi, I remember you from this event, and I was wondering if you would be open to presenting to with my organization Canada Lead, and the rest is history. I don't even know how many times I've done collaborations with Canada Lead, but it's been a pleasure all the time. And I wanted to bring Valerie to this space because I really love the way that she coaches, that she coordinates, that she networks. And I feel like she's a great example of how to build your career through networking, honestly. So before I proceed, I wanted to give you space, Valerie, to introduce yourself, share a little bit about yourself, if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you so much, Zainab. Yes, I'm so happy that we connected back in 2021. I
Hmm.
think we had a lot of mutual connections, especially in the career coaching space. And I was
Hmm.
really happy that we connected because the work that we've done at the Lead Org has been really fruitful and amazing. And I really always appreciate your fun and bubbly effervescence presence and
No,
the way that
thank
you
you.
encourage people to really grow in their career, clarity, courage, and confidence, which is very much aligned with what I do. So a bit about me is I am Valerie Lay. I am a career development practitioner. I'm also known as Valerie Lay Career Confidence Coach. And I specifically have decided to focus in on helping people with their confidence because it has to do so much with my own story as a
Mm.
youth and young adult, being really confused with my own career, not growing up having a lot of mentors and role models to guide me, to help me bolster my strengths, my skills, my talents. Growing up in high school, I had amazing teachers and amazing organizations within our high school. For example, leadership and student council that really bolstered self and personal development. And so it was really there that taking you way back to high school days, but that's really there that I knew I had a passion for leadership and personal growth and development. So many years later, that developed into going to university or initially wanting to study English literature because I want to become a
Mhm.
teacher. Like my amazing teachers in high school really encouraged and inspired me, and that led to changing majors to focusing on women and gender studies. Was really passionate about social justice, still am, and that led to doing a stint in the wellness path, and then living abroad, teaching English, came about in a roundabout way to working in sales, to doing what I do now many years later. My career path, I'm probably on my fourth career now. So I've had a very nonlinear career path, but there was always a common thread of, helping people. Yes.
Mhm.
I love the nonlinear career path story, and I think more people need to hear about it too.
I
So,
agree.
having had all those rich experiences, though, I was really at a loss at how I could turn that into a career. And it wasn't until my late 20s that, after a long period of experiencing unemployment and really not knowing what to do next, that I delved back into what I was really passionate about, community, and going out there, attending a lot of free workshops, networking events, meeting other young people who want to make a difference in the city. From Toronto, by the way, shout out to my Toronto peeps. And it was there that I met amazing young people who not only wanted to make a difference in the community, but I also met amazing adults and organizations that also provided this guidance to anyone who needed it. So it was there that, at an amazing event down at City Hall, Toronto, I met an amazing organization. And, at the time, I just had this strong pull. Again, like I mentioned, was unemployed for a long period of time, a year, which is the longest period of time that I've experienced unemployment since I started working when I was 18. And I knew I wanted to work again, but I knew I didn't want to go into just any field. I knew I wanted to get some guidance. So I signed up for services at this amazing event, and I was matched with an amazing employment advisor who completely changed my life. She was also a career development practitioner, and she saw where I couldn't see at the time. Although I had lots of experience, as I mentioned, I didn't know I could translate that into a career. But she helped me see the dots and connect the dots. And with that, I was also encouraged to join a youth mentoring and networking program. And I started to go to these networking events, meeting amazing mentors who, like myself, had a very nonlinear career path. Right. And that's when I started to realize, it's okay to be figuring it out. Where I am now is actually part of what we call the career development cycle. As career development practitioners, I was in the phase where I was exploring my career. Right. And not long after that, I was actually hired to be a peer leader, and I started to coach my fellow peers, my fellow youth who, like myself, were trying to figure out their career paths. I started coaching them, and the rest is pretty much history. I decided to go back to school to study career development full time, and now looking back, it's always something I was doing anyway. I was always helping people. Even prior to getting help myself, I was helping my friends with interviews, helping them with jobs, and they were going on to be successful as well. They saw the coach in me before I saw it in myself. So now that I look back, I'm very grateful that I decided to trust that path and not listen to the noise around me. There's a lot of noise as well, but I decided to trust the process, and it led me to where I couldn't have imagined I would be where I am. I would never have imagined that I would be where I am today. And it all took, taking steps forward and trusting. And yeah, a whole career. I came looking for a job, Zainab. I thought, okay, I need a job. I need to make some money. And I got a whole new education, a whole new career, and a whole new lease on life, which is now also turned into an entrepreneur pursuit as well.
Yeah.
All from just taking those steps forward.
Being curious, right?
Being curious. Exactly.
Yeah. And being open to being okay with not knowing
Yes,
what your next
absolutely.
move is, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's what drives the curiosity. I think we forget how much we stagnate ourselves when we hold on to our expectations or our belief of where we should be. And once we say, you know what, there's something out there for me and I have to be okay with feeling uncomfortable, that's when things I have seen like accelerate. And you literally just articulated
Yes.
that, right? Like it accelerated. And even though it was, you probably described a decade worth of experiences, it seems like in a blink of an eye, here
Yeah,
you are
sure.
today, you know?
Yeah, when you look back, it's like, wow. If you asked me back then when I was struggling and confused and trying to figure things out, 5 years later, that I would be on this podcast with you and
I
being,
know.
a program coordinator, a facilitator, podcast guest, like I would have been like, no way.
Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur, yeah, mind
Yeah, I
blown.
know. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to, so you talked about the fact that you are a career confidence coach. We're going to dig into that a little bit more, but I
Sure.
wanted to talk specifically about for where you are right now, what does career confidence look like for you?
Thank you for asking this really important query. So I'll give a little bit of context. So at the beginning, I was kind of talking about, oh, yes, this is why I focus on career confidence. I talked about my own story, about not feeling confident, feeling really confused. And over time, working with youth in the field who are also, trying to get employment, trying to figure out their careers, I noticed there was a common theme throughout everyone I was seeing. Like myself, most of them were either first or second generation Canadians. Me, I'm a first generation Canadian born. Most of them had, similar educational backgrounds. Most of them were all university or at least college educated. And they were very intelligent, very well educated, but they just didn't have the confidence in themselves. They didn't know how to market themselves. They didn't know how to connect the dots. And I kept noticing that theme. And I realized that as I was coaching them, what I love doing most is helping them see their strengths and talents, right? So I decided to focus in on career confidence, helping people boost their confidence. So I would say to me, what career confidence means is knowing your unique skills, strengths, and talents. Knowing that it is so unique as a thumbprint, and being able to really hone and capitalize on those skills, strengths, and talents. Really ground yourself strongly in it so that you can make the right decisions for your careers and decision wise, sometimes we get caught, side note, sometimes we get caught up, oh, what's the right decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
But any decision you make, you will just pivot and go forward.
Mm-hmm.
There's an intuitive process when it comes to decision making. But I strongly believe that knowing what your skills, strengths, talents, and your values, what your values are, can really be a strong guiding force. So that's often a point I start with a lot of my clients is knowing who you are. And that's also part of the career development model is the who
Yes.
am I part. Knowing, taking a deep dive assessment into your skills, strengths, and talents. I'm also a really big geek for assessments and,
Me
those
too.
quizzes, MBTI, and all those things. I really like using those tools with my clients. And I love being able to take what they're telling me about their strengths, their interests in their careers, and then showing them based on what they tell me, synthesizing all the information that they tell me and combining that with the skills and strengths that they tell me that they feel they have and the strengths that I see that they have, holding that up to them as a mirror. And
Mm.
there's honestly nothing like it. I think you can attest to this as a fellow career coach.
Yeah.
It's so priceless to be able to see people really light up. When I reflect this back and they're like, oh, that's me. I'm like, yeah, I didn't make it up. I just maybe rejigged it, resummarized it,
Yeah.
and reflected it back to you. And to see them feel so much more calmer and confident, the before and after, from the bud to the
Yes.
blossom, it's just priceless to me. It's incredible. It's the best part of my job.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's when you see the light bulb go off,
Yeah, the light bulb.
or because a lot of times when people come to coaches, whether it is for career confidence or career fulfillment, they feel disorganized, like they can't organize their thoughts. They don't.
Yes.
They don't. They lack a sense of direction, right, and hopefulness. And I
Yes.
think in the work that we do, we're not even. I love that you said I'm just putting up a mirror because a lot
Yeah.
of times people think or it's tempting to think that as a coach we have to tell people how to feel and how to think, and a lot of times it's affirming what they already know about
Yes.
themselves but
Love
just
it.
framing it in a way that
Framing.
is digestible, that makes sense, right?
Yes.
And I
I love
think
it.
and that's what the mirror is, right? Is
Yes.
but because we're holding up the mirror, it seems like for me my clients trust our insight in that space, you know. So something you said that I loved was you said you help the first part of the coaching experience is, or one of the first parts is asking the question, who am I?
Yes.
Can you talk more about why that's important to understand who we are, to ask that
Thank you.
question?
Yes. So I think who am I can also be a very loaded question. So there's always questions beneath that question. Break
Yeah.
it down. What are my values? What's most important to me? What are my superpowers? And if you don't know them
Mm,
yourself, you can always ask, like, what do people always compliment me on? Right? Even people who don't know
yes.
each other, right? There's a commonality that all these people you maybe worked with before, they all have a similar compliment to give you. So I feel like that's a really important place to start, knowing who you are, because I think everything flows from and through us, right? So especially if you're in a period of transition or you've gone through something really rough, much like my story, experiencing unemployment, experiencing burnout as well, experiencing things that really took a hit to my confidence. This is a personal mission for me, right? To help people who they are, right? Because, I feel like just based on past experiences that I've had where I've felt really shaky about who I am, and maybe listening to inner the inner critic,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think, speaking of the inner critic, I think knowing who you are is a really important counterbalance against those gremlins that we all have in our heads, right?
Yeah.
The imposter. So knowing who you are, knowing who you are at the core, so your skills, your strengths, even goes beyond, skills. This work that we do as career coaches, it goes beyond the career stuff, like, oh, skills, you're good at this and that, but it goes very deep to the spiritual soul
Mm-hmm.
level.
Yes. Yes. We've
Yes.
talked about
So
that before. Me and you.
yes. So it's really important to know who you are. And I believe, we are all here with a purpose in mind. And
Yes.
I think when we can all operate in who we truly are at the core,
Hmm.
our true gifts, then it will make the world a better place. And you will definitely feel a lot more confident as well,
Yes.
because you're operating in your natural gifts instead of trying to squeeze the square peg into the round hole. It's like wearing shoes that don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it just chafes against you, your whole life feels like a blister.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What's I was listening to this book, You Are a Badass at Being at Making Money by Jen
Oh,
Sincera.
Jensen. Oh,
My sister
yes.
hit me to that, and she actually
Awesome.
last night was talking about, when I was listening, she was talking about, she used this analogy of our mindset, and when it comes to, she's talking about our mindset around money,
Mm-hmm.
and she used an
Mm-hmm.
analogy of resisting change is the same
Mm.
as being an adult and wanting to put on a kid's snowsuit, because the snowsuit is something that you're familiar with because you've worn it
Mm.
before, right? But
True.
we've outgrown it.
Mm.
And but we are so, and because we've outgrown it, every time we try to get
Mm-hmm.
into it, it's a fight, right? And so I think that's one of the important things of asking, who am I? Because
Mm-hmm.
we evolve, right? And if we
Yeah, I
don't,
love
we
it.
won't be able to
Yes.
see that we're evolving and that the things that we desire
Mm.
and that we need are going to change. And so we're thinking that we need to still be in this, kid
Mm.
sized snowsuit. We're Canadian, so everything goes to snow.
Yes, yes. I had one of those when I was little.
Yeah. Well, I had one in the States when I was
One
little, but
piece.
living here, like my
Yeah.
mind just goes to the snow
Mm-hmm.
analogy.
Yeah.
Um, but we are stuck on being in the snowsuit, and we're like, man, how much freer, how much happier would I be if I allowed myself to be in the snowsuit that's my size? And
Mm.
so I think one of the other benefits to asking, who am I, is allowing yourself to realize that that person is going to be a different person than who you thought it was,
Ooh.
right? Because the person
Wow.
who got you to, when you first started
Mm.
college and you were driven by
Mm.
your professor, your teachers in high school, and
Mm-hmm.
your love
Yeah.
for English,
Mm-hmm.
right? That person got you to university, to
Mm.
U of T, right? But then there was a
Yes, UT.
different person that got you to
Mm.
being a career practitioner. And there is a different
Yeah.
person that got you to now
Ooh.
being a career coach. And so getting in the habit of asking ourselves, who am I today? Right? And
Ooh, that's a good
right?
one.
What does the person today need? Right? And very often there's going to be changes, but there are some fundamental things that won't change about us, right? But then there are things that do change, that we have to allow to grow. We have to allow to change.
I love that. I love the shift to thinking, who am I today, and allowing ourselves to grow, evolve,
Hmm.
and change, and allowing us to go beyond the snowsuit that may have fit us when we were in grade two.
Yes.
I still remember my snowsuit from back then. Literally lie on the ground and then sit on my bum and then pull on each leg at a time, zip up, and then stand up.
I remember, it breaks my heart, but I have to mention this because I loved this show growing up, watching the Cosby Show, and we're going
Oh.
to ignore Bill Cosby and focus on his kids. And so I remember there was an episode where Rudy was coming in and she had on all her snow stuff, and her dad was helping her get her snow stuff off. And he took the boot off, and then he's trying to pull a sock off, not realizing she has these stockings on underneath. So she's like sitting
Mm.
up. And that's what it was like. We had, because I grew up in New York, New Jersey area, and
Mm.
you had to layer up. Like, you have to layer up there.
Yes.
Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't just, I mean, your body adjusts, but you
Yeah.
still have to, you have to evolve, right? It's not the same as.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, one of the things, I thank you for sharing that about asking, who am I? I think that's something that our listeners can
You're
really,
welcome.
really benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to shift a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
the both of us have the privilege of working with a lot of individuals of color. My
Mm-hmm.
clients tend to be
Mm-hmm.
more women of color than men, but very often, especially up here in Canada, they're similar to you. You said second generation Canadian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I imagine the conversations when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
confidence has some
Yeah.
distinct characteristics because
Mm-hmm.
of that lived experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know if you could share a little bit about like
Sure.
what's a common thing that you see with the people you serve and support.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the curiosity. Yes, so it was so interesting, as I was evolving, growing in my career, and I was working with a lot of other young adults, and yeah, like I guess kept seeing a mirror of my own self. I was like, wait a minute, I am my own client. I'm working with these people who are so similar to
I love
me.
that. I am
Like
my
I
own
mentioned,
client.
yeah, I am my own client, right? I was also that young, first generation Canadian born. Like my parents were refugees and they came to Canada in the 1970s and 1980s. And so I was born in Toronto, born and raised. And many of my clients as well, their parents had come here, or some of them were also newcomers where they came when they were younger,
Mm-hmm.
but they have grown up here, or some, are recent newcomers. But I noticed that a lot of them came from, similar cultural backgrounds, similar, very conservative types of cultures where there's certain expectations
Yes.
in those cultures. For example, I can speak to my own. I'm Vietnamese Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
and as I mentioned, my parents were refugees. They were the boat people who
Mm.
arrived to, they escaped and they were able to arrive and get sponsored to live in Canada, where, we've been for like over 40 years. And so even within that history, my own family's history, of, surviving, I really had that instilled in me.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the clients, because their parents were either refugees or immigrants as well, or they are newcomers themselves, they also have that kind of work hard mentality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I saw that in my parents growing up as well. I saw them work hard, very diligent, very consistent, even to the point of, burning themselves out
Yeah.
as well. Like
Yeah, I
they would
saw
still
that
go to
too with my
work. And
parents.
so,
Yeah.
yes, it's a very common thread that we have as, first or second generation Canadians or
Mm-hmm.
Americans, our parents having to like work really hard to build that foundation for us to be able to get the education, right? So with that came a lot of pressure as well. Like for me, I'm the eldest in my family. And actually a lot of the young people I was working with, they were also the eldest. And if you're the eldest, if there's a different expectation for you, especially as a daughter, right? So there was a lot of pressure to become that typical doctor, lawyer, or engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some high paying profession, which will earn you lots of prestige, but also the income, which would give you that perceived stability that, our parents didn't have because they had to start over from scratch. Right. So there's that pressure to live up to the expectation,
Yes.
to make your family proud. It
Mm-hmm.
could be a lot of pressure and a
Yeah.
lot of stress.
Yeah.
So that's something I noticed with a lot of my clients. And that was also hindering their confidence. And I can say in my own experience, it's also really had a profound effect on my confidence as well. Like, can I do this? This is a lot. It's so much pressure sometimes.
Yeah, I was speaking to someone and we had a similar conversation of what you shared where they did a career pivot and then they were happy. They were seeing their happiness in front of them.
Mm,
But because they grew up, and it really wasn't
mm,
as much their parents because their parents were actually quite supportive, but
mm,
they grew up in a very similar a community where a lot of their peers were second
mm,
generation Canadian, and so it was like a social cultural pressure too,
mm.
right? And
Yes.
so we had to kind of have a conversation about how do we
Mm-hmm.
release this narrative that other
Mm-hmm.
people,
Yes.
like I asked them, like, who told you that you not being X, Y, and Z profession
Mm.
means that you're
Yeah.
less than? Like, where does that even come
Mm.
from? And the
Yes.
person
I love that.
who made that up, who are they? What
Mm.
makes them the expert to tell you that
I love it.
that narrative is actually the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just by us being human beings, being creatures of this planet, of this universe,
Yeah.
we have value.
I
And
love
that's
it.
it.
Yes, period.
Period. With a T.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking with a T
With
at
a
the
T at
end
the end.
and a period right after,
Right,
too.
right. And I think that for a lot of the individuals that we work with, they're coming here, to North America, or maybe it's in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
right, for a better opportunity, but they're coming
Yes.
in being told that because they look a certain way, they speak a
Mm-hmm.
language, or they practice a certain religion, that they're less than.
Mm.
So part of the
Yes.
pressure is to
Mm-hmm.
counter
Yes.
the narrative that they're being told, the stereotypes that they're being
Mm.
sold, that
Yeah.
they're less than.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something
Mm-hmm.
that I really I had a very unique upbringing because my father is from Trinidad, so he had the immigrant experience, but my
Mm-hmm.
mom grew up in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So she had the
Mm-hmm.
more she had the post-slavery African American experience.
Mm-hmm.
And my father instilled in us the desire to achieve excellence. I got a
Mm-hmm.
chance to talk to him recently about it, and it was like from his parents. They were very much like, you have to be this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's family, her parents, they instilled excellence as well, but they showed us more how to, they represented more of to me, the resistance
Mm.
against the system, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So it
Yeah.
was like my mom kind of gave us this mindset, like, I don't care what these people are saying to you. Don't ever like put your head down. Don't ever be quiet,
Mm.
speak your mind.
Mm.
As where it wasn't that my
Mm-hmm.
dad didn't speak his mind, but a lot of times with an immigrant experience, you're told, just put your head
Mm-hmm.
down and go to work, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think I'm grateful that I had that balance, because I have the drive to achieve excellence, but I also have the confidence to say, but I'm going to achieve excellence on my terms.
I love it.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Not on yours. And I think for anyone that's listening,
Mm.
that can relate to, being
Mm.
a person of color,
Mm.
being second generation or even first generation North American. You can definitely work hard and
Mm-hmm.
strive to be successful, but you are deserving of the ability to do it under your terms, not
I
anyone
love it.
else's.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah,
And I think that makes us very unique as well as
absolutely.
the first or second generation is like, yes, we may have had, those cultural beliefs and values handed down through the generations from our parents, but we are a generation. Like I think we're both
We
millennials.
are.
Yeah. So as a millennial generation, like we're a maverick generation,
Absolutely.
right? We do things on our own terms.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, just to wrap up, I wanted to give you space to share maybe a piece of advice for anyone who's listening who may be struggling with their career confidence. What's one thing they can do today to help them get started to feeling more confident in the decisions they have to make about their career?
So a few things come to mind. Of course, like, what we talked about earlier, knowing yourself. So maybe this is a few pieces of
Mm-hmm.
guidance. A place where I like to start if you are feeling lost and confused is maybe doing an assessment. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nerd for assessments.
Mm-hmm.
I love the via character strengths. You were probably familiar with that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally free. You can take it online and it'll actually give you a list of about like 25 of your top character strengths. And I'm not talking just about your career.
Mm-hmm.
This is your strengths,
Yes.
your character strengths as a person. So I've assigned that to my clientele as well. And it's been very eye opening and very insightful. Even things that they didn't even think were strengths came up. And it helped them see, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, actually, this is a strength. And I'm able to actually weave that into my career, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would also say, I'm a strong advocate for the career development profession, not only because I'm in it, but because I've been helped so much because of other career development practitioners and coaches. I would not be where I am in my career if not for other CDPs. So I would say even get in touch with a career coach or career development practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of free resources as well. I started off as a client at a nonprofit. That's how I initially got help. So if you're in the position where you may not be able to afford seeing a coach one-on-one, then I would say be resourceful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Use all the resources that you have. And of course, there's tons of content online.
Absolutely.
Follow Zainab, follow.
Valerie on
Yes,
LinkedIn.
thank you. Sure, yes, yes. Zainab and I are both very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
There are so many amazing career coaches on LinkedIn. Just from following them, you get amazing content. And speaking of LinkedIn networking, I would not be where I am in my career if not for networking. LinkedIn is a gold mine.
Yeah.
Zainab actually, her and I recently collaborated
Mm-hmm.
for a LinkedIn empowerment program, and the youths there, they were just like, wow, like I literally thought LinkedIn was just, I put my profile on there, or I didn't realize how much I could do on LinkedIn. Like I feel so much more confident about using it as well. So connect with people on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Starting with career coaches, so you can get amazing content on your newsfeed.
Yes.
And also, it's a great place to do career exploration. See who's doing what in a career that you might be interested in. Reach out to connect for informational interviews and coffee chats. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Zoom online makes it super easy to do that. Be prepared. Have some questions that you want to ask. This is all part of your career exploration and development. Talking to people who are on the inside. So those are my key pieces of guidance for those who are trying to figure out their career path.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This was
You're
really a
welcome.
pleasure for me because I'll be honest with you. This is why we should always be curious. We've worked together, but a major part of my experience with you and knowledge with you was on the LinkedIn space. And so,
Mm.
and then also the work that you've done with other organizations. So I'm glad that we had this opportunity to chat because it
Mm-hmm.
really allowed me to get to know you as the entrepreneur, the career confidence
Oh,
coach. And I think
thank
that
you.
you just offered some amazing insight. And I loved hearing more about just your personal journey.
Thank
And
you.
it's true, like, I think one of the things that's so great about being a coach is we get to connect our journeys with the people that we
Yes.
support,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yes.
universally, unifying. It's a beautiful
Mm-hmm. I
thing.
love that.
Yeah, thank you
I
so much.
agree.
So before
You're very
I
welcome.
let you
Thank
go,
you.
I would like for you to share where folks can follow you, and I'm also
Sure.
put it in the episode notes as well.
Great. So where folks can find me
Mm.
is on LinkedIn. I am Valerie Lay, career confidence coach. I have the moniker in my name, so be sure to put the entire thing so that you can find me. Feel free to reach out, send me a personalized invitation so we can connect.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Valerie. It was a pleasure
You're
chatting with
welcome.
you, and yeah, thank you.
Likewise, thank you, Zainab. I'm very honored to be part of this.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.